Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, July the 27th. And welcome to our commentary. Well, before we get to my AT post, I just wanted to comment real fast on this story that I saw today. And it's really an unusual story that the Democrats don't have a lot of cash. Whereas, on the other hand, the Republicans are flooded with cash. I'm talking about campaign cash for the upcoming election. The Republicans are really loaded with cash, whereas the Democrats have a real cash problem. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to get more, but apparently they're going to have to borrow money to get some money for the campaign. So, you need cash, particularly in some of these districts and in some of these Senate races, to go out and buy television time, to go out and make your case. You got to have cash. And I don't remember the last time that it was this lopsided. I mean, usually both sides have whatever it takes, what they need. I guess I'll put it that way. They have whatever it takes. But this time it seems like, I don't know, the Democrats are really short on cash. And I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if they mismanaged the money or just didn't get what they were expecting, maybe a combination of both. But it is really unusual that, here we are 100 days away from a midterm election and the Democrats are having cash problems. Well, they need cash. Now, of course, this is not individual senators who have lots of cash. I'm talking about the party or the individual member of Congress. I'm talking about the party that right now seems to be short of cash. So we'll see. But I don't remember the last time there was something like that, such a lopsided difference between the parties when it came to cash on hand for the campaign. Well, I have a post over at the American Thinker today about what just happened up in Illinois, where a federal judge basically issued an opinion telling the state of Illinois that they cannot offer in-state tuition to illegal immigrants. Now, probably most of these illegal immigrants here are dreamers, I'm guessing, or young people, one way or another. But the state is saying, no, you cannot offer someone who's not in the country legally in-state tuition. Well, of course, what I'm talking about is that if you go to a state in your university or your state, if you go to university in your state, that's cheaper, of course, than for somebody from the outside to come in. And they said, no, you cannot do that. You cannot offer someone who doesn't have papers, basically, that's what that means, a special in-house state or in-state tuition for college. Now, not too many states still do that. I know we had that problem in Texas, but I think the legislature killed it. And I believe in California, they still have that benefit. So they may end up losing it too. But I think it's a good idea on the part of the judge to write that opinion. Look, if a person is in the country without papers, then particularly a young person, maybe an effort should be made to legalize that person, to figure out some way of giving that person maybe a student visa or something so that they can go to the college wherever they live. But to simply treat them as you would treat any other citizen, I think that obviously discriminated against American citizens, which is what the judge said. So, I don't want to be completely heartless. I know some of these are young people, but at the same time, they should maybe give them a student visa, offer them something so that they can stay in the United States. But I think once again, we're paying the price for not having done anything about this immigration problem for such a long time, for having led so many people into the country. And now these are the consequences. These people are here and they want to go to college. Well, I guess, they have to understand that they're not in the country legally. So I understand the judge here. I mean, I know that some of the young people are probably going to be hurt by this, but, immigration is immigration. You got to live by the rules. And obviously, some of these states have decided that the rules don't apply to them, I guess, when it comes to illegal immigration. Well, we did a post or a podcast with our friend Barry Castleman last night. Now, this one, it's only available in the audio version. We didn't do a video like this or like I normally do. It's only available in the audio version. So I have it up on X, and I have it up on Facebook, and I have it on my blog. But it's a very interesting analysis that Barry Castleman made about the upcoming Senate election. Now, we've had Barry many times in the past. In fact, he's been a guest of our program going back to 2012, I think, 2012, 2011, or pretty much ever since I started doing the podcast, he's been with me. And his specialty is the U.S. Senate. He looks at the U.S. Senate, and he usually turns out to be right in his predictions. He's got a good record, if you will, in making these predictions. And this is what he said about the elections. Right now, of course, the Senate is 53-47. Republicans 53, Democrats 47. This is pretty much what he said. The Democrats will probably flip North Carolina. That one seems likely to flip from Democrat or from Republican to Democrat. So that would be a pickup for the Democrats. So all of a sudden, instead of 47, they have 48. He thinks that the Republicans will keep Maine, especially after this travesty that the Democrats have gone through up there. But here's a couple of interesting ones. He believes that the Republicans will flip Michigan. Now, a lot of that has to do with the upcoming primary. If the Democrats nominate this more radical candidate, then I think that's a done deal. Rogers, the Republican, will win up there. But even if he doesn't, Rogers is a very strong candidate, and Michigan is becoming a real purple state. I mean, that's really no longer an automatic for the Democrats up there. So he thinks that Michigan will flip, especially if this more radical candidate is nominated. But here's what he told me last night, which is really interesting. Now, Barry always has a surprise election. He always tries to come up with one that completely defies the odds, if you will. And his choice this time around is the state of Minnesota. He thinks that the Democrats are so unpopular right now in Minnesota because of all of this fraud and all of these money problems they've had up there, that he thinks there's a very good chance that the Democrats could win the Senate. There's also, or the Republicans could win the Senate. The Republicans could flip the Senate. He also mentioned that at the moment, the two Democrats who are running for the Senate nomination, the current, I believe, lieutenant governor and a member of the Minnesota legislature, these two people are going at each other. I mean, it's getting vicious, this campaign, this primary campaign. I mean, he was talking about their television ads are rough. You know, they're really going at each other. And the accusation, of course, against the lieutenant governor is that she was at least silent. I don't think she's being accused of participating in the fraud, but she's being accused of kind of going along, or at least saying nothing about the terrible fraud problem that they've got up there. So he believes that Minnesota is the potential flip of the night, the one that could end up probably going late into the night, but it could end up being the flip of the night from the Democrats to the Republicans. The Republicans have a very interesting candidate, as he was telling me, for the U.S. Senate this year. Michelle Montaya, I think is her name. Michelle was if you watch sports and you know who I'm talking about, she was a sideline reporter for years in the NBA and in the NFL. So she has a very familiar face. She's well-spoken, and apparently she's from Minnesota. And she's running a very effective campaign, and she doesn't have a primary to worry about. So she's not going to get bloody in a primary like the two Democrats are. He thinks that she has a very good chance of flipping Minnesota from Democrat to Republican. That would be shocking. That would be a real story of the election. Well, we're going to have to keep an eye on it. As I say, it's 100 days away. Lots of things can happen in 100 days. I mean, 100 days is a lifetime when it comes to an election. but I would keep an eye on Minnesota. Barry really knows what he's talking about. So I will be personally keeping an eye on Minnesota, because that race is pretty interesting to me now that Barry has brought it to my attention. So if the way it stands right now, let's assume that Minnesota stays Democrat, but Michigan flips and to the Republicans, and North Carolina flips to the Democrats, then basically the numbers stay the same, 53-47, if that's the way the election goes. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on all of this, and we'll have him back probably around Labor Day, and maybe have him back one more time before election to get a better sense of what is going on. On this day in history, 1940, Bugs Bunny made his debut. The most famous rabbit in Hollywood, Bugs Bunny, made his debut in a movie. Now, remember, back then, they didn't have TV. So if you wanted to be, it had to be a movie. And sometimes they had these short movies that they would show between movies. Well, Bugs Bunny made his debut in 1940 on this day. He went on to become the most famous rabbit in Hollywood. And quite a following for Bugs Bunny 86 years later. So happy number 86 to Bugs Bunny, as I say, the most famous rabbit in Hollywood. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.